Hi everyone, welcome to episode 14 of Demand Decoded, and today is an extremely exciting and special episode. Phil and I are joined by Kipp Bodnar to talk about the state of B2B marketing today, and hopefully we'll get a few inside nuggets from a HubSpot perspective too. So I know many of you would have heard of Kipp for a bunch of reasons before. He's CMO at HubSpot, been there for over 13 years, and I suppose really helped to shape and define HubSpot's content strategy that's really fueled their growth. He's co-host of Marketing Against the Grain with Kieran Flanagan, which is an extremely popular marketing podcast, which again, most of you have probably listened to. And I know, as a podcast lover, I'm a big fan of it. Outside of that, he's just, a great, honest, industry-leading speaker and blogger, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. Did I miss anything there, Kipp, or did I
Look, you got it. Most of my time these days is on the podcast. I'm trying to be a podcaster and YouTuber because I believe it is the skill of the future. It is a very hard grind. Kudos to you guys for being on the podcast and streaming grind. It is not easy, but no, that was a great intro. Completely nailed it.
Thanks for joining us, Kipp. I saw you most recently at Inbound.
We saw each other in person like days ago. It's pretty incredible, right?
And of course, watched Marketing Against the Grain with slides, which I thought was fab.
We weren't used to the slides on the live podcast. Right. Just so you know, if you're a podcaster, doing it live is just way harder than
weird, right?
But being in a little room like I'm in right now.
You pulled it off. It was a great session. And during it, you encouraged your, friend and colleague Kieran to spill some tea, which is a phrase I remember. And, that's something that I've admired for a long time about yourself and about HubSpot, which is like the willingness or even, maybe dedication to showing people the nuts and bolts of how things are done, as well as the strategic, reason for its success. Over the years, we've learned so much from HubSpot, whether it's pillar page SEO strategy, the secrets to HubSpot's website redesign, how CTAs work, and going forward, the role of AI in marketing. So, really want to thank you for having that commitment and for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. One of the things I'd start with is like, I have a trail outside of my house here in suburban Boston, Massachusetts. And normally after I drop my son off at school, like I did this morning, I go and I take like a 20-minute walk as like a mental clearing. I was like, I'm going on the show. Let me kind of get my head cleared. And I was reflecting on, I was like, why isn't because you talked a little bit about transparency, spilling the information, give people kind of the backstage access. I was like, why isn't everybody, like every leading expert, why aren't they making stuff online? And it occurred to me in this walk that they're not doing that because they're not transparent with their team, right? Like they're afraid to tell the world something that they wouldn't tell the people that they work directly with every day. And that's like a very interesting disconnect. I don't know, for me and for Kieran on Marketing Against the Grain, when we're doing the show, like, that's what we want to get rid of, right? Like part of the reason is we want to share the best advice, but we also want to share it in a really transparent way. Like I tell my team everything. So there's nothing that I'm going to say on that show, even if it's slightly hyperbolic, that like people haven't heard before.
Yeah.
I think that's like a disconnect that just kind of exists in the world today.
Yeah. I think if you push the envelope, so to speak, that final sort of part of the way, whatever you do in an inbound sort of sense will have that much greater an impact, because everybody's sharing the sort of, the first 80% of how things are done. Everybody's creating content, but there is that line that people struggle to cross, which is to say, well, this is really what's going on and really how we did it.
Well, people are afraid to work in public. And one of the most powerful things you can do is work in public, work in a way that you're very open and transparent about what you're doing. And the reason that's so powerful is it creates massive accountability and it trains you. Like once you decide you're ready to work in public, you basically become a feedback machine. And the only way to get better at anything is to just collect and act on feedback and just completely iterate and go through those circles, right? And once you start working in public, you just get way more feedback because your work is much more in front of a wider group of people, obviously, right? And that is what people don't understand is like, that is an unfair advantage. Like the more feedback you can get faster, you're just gonna get better than everybody else. And that is a huge opportunity.
And I think the good news for people is that a lot of that feedback will be positive.
Right. Yeah. You're going to get a little bit of that positive feedback. That's like, keep going. Like, this is worth doing. And then you're going to get some constructive feedback. And it's very like 5% of it is like trolling, not helpful feedback, right? Like, a lot of that feedback is actually really valuable. You're like, oh yeah, you're right. I missed a story in that show today that I should have told. Because it's like, oh, maybe somebody I used to work with will text me and be like, oh, I thought you were really going to tell this story on today's show because it fit perfectly in there. I'll be like, you're right. I just totally screwed that up, and that would have made the show way better. And like that element of it is very underrated.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, yeah, that gives a bit of insight into, what Kipp's all about and the kind of insights he's willing to deliver on shows like this and his own show. So let's dive in. By the way, if you are watching live, you can ask some questions in the LinkedIn chat. And if we do have time at the end, we'll pick them up. No promises, but we'll try our best. So Kipp, you've been at HubSpot for almost 15 years now, which is probably a bit crazy to think about.
Very, very crazy to think about.
One of the first things we wanted to ask you was, in that time, what are the biggest changes in B2B marketing that you've seen?
Yeah. So when you think about B2B marketing, I think a lot of times people go directly into like the strategies of B2B marketing and how they've changed. The important thing to start with is that marketing, I'm going to say marketing in general, whether it be B2B or B2C marketing, is just an output of culture and cultural evolution, right? And so how does, when we started HubSpot, Brian and Ramesh started HubSpot, they were like, oh, the internet changed the way people shop and buy things. And so businesses need new tools to help them adapt to those changing ways. Turns out that statement is basically constantly true, right? That human culture and things are constantly evolving, and you have to change with them. And so when you think about B2B marketing specifically, right? The late 2000s, basically through, the pandemic, we're all about, very heavy inbound marketing. They were largely content creation, search engine optimization, all of those strategies, very effective, still very effective, but somewhat less effective because we're on the precipice of the next generation of societal change, right? And that societal change is large language models through artificial intelligence that are going to disrupt the way people interact with technology, the way they have just democratized understanding and intelligence of information. The internet, like inbound marketing, was all about giving people access to information. Now that's no longer enough. With artificial intelligence, we have access to intelligence, which is a very different place to be in. But even if you're like not aboard the AI hype train, you can sit back and objectively look and say that, oh, the internet has fundamentally changed a lot over the last couple of years. And the reason for that is, first of all, advertising has gotten disaggregated, which means used to be, Meta and Google were the only advertising games in town. Wow, the Reddit advertising business has gotten big. TikTok advertising business going big. Uber's making $5 billion a year from advertising now.
Yeah.
You start looking at it, wow, the decentralization of advertising, all of these creators who are doing kind of one-to-one partnerships with brands, like that is a massive change. And B2B marketers can take advantage of that change and find new opportunities in their advertising. The second part of that, that's I think fairly obvious, is search is also unbundling with the advertising. Like we're not just searching in Google, we're searching in Google, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, like ChatGPT, Anthropic, like whatever it may be, whether it be between large language models, marketplaces, and social networks, search is heavily decentralized now. Yeah. So I think those are, to me, the two big trends outside of just technology being way better and the need for better, cleaner data in one place, right? To take advantage of all of these trends, especially AI, you need a front office platform with all of your data in one place in a clean, accessible way.
Yeah, and I suppose from the search perspective, obviously more and more buyers are starting their journey and starting their search in those different places, right? Not just in Google. So do you see more emphasis being put in those places rather than just focusing kind of on one channel? Or
Yeah, I chatted with my team last week. We had an off, or gosh, it wasn't even last week. It was last week because it was Monday. We had an offsite with our media team, and so that's our team that does blogs, newsletters, podcast network, YouTube, everything, and basically all of the research, everything we make to try to entertain, inspire, and educate the world of business. And one of the things that I think came apparent to all of us is the last generation of B2B marketing, most of the people served a centralized internet with a decentralized team. And what I mean by that is that there weren't that many platforms, right? Like a lot of the platforms from the late 2000s kind of went away. Reddit kind of had a dip. Delicious, stumble upon, all these things that people used to use. And then you really left with, essentially Facebook, Instagram, Google, and then TikTok and Snapchat emerged and all those things. And what you had is you had very specialized siloed teams. So like, oh, here's our team that builds our search insight report for our pillar SEO strategy, as Phil, as you alluded to, right? And that was a great way to do marketing. What's happening now that the internet is unbundling and fragmenting, we're probably going to need to serve that fragmented internet with centralized teams, which is kind of the opposite, right? We're doing an inverse. And the reason we're going to need to do that is because, through this centralization, we need to figure out, we have this idea that worked really great on YouTube. How do we make sure that we cut it down to Reels, to TikTok, to YouTube Shorts? And then how do we make sure we get the monetization of that right? What's the report or sign up flow or anything on the back end that's going to monetize that attention well? And so it starts becoming a much more integrated experience across all of these platforms. And so you need a more centralized, more integrated team to deliver that. And I think if you're talking about the changes in the market right now, I think that's a big one. And I don't think it's something that most people are talking about right now.
Interesting stuff. Agree. And I think, AI is the big cultural change that we're witnessing and going through right now, which will change an awful lot of stuff. It will not wipe out and eradicate some things. It will still have a long way left to help businesses grow. So they shouldn't stop doing everything they've been doing and shift 100% to new strategies. But I think it's interesting that with the rise of AI and people's fears and doubts about it, you and Kieran have identified that it perhaps counterintuitively elevates the value of original thinker and creator personas and individuals. And I think it's refreshing and reassuring for people to hear that actually it creates more demand for those traits. There's hope for us humans yet. And yet, interestingly, there needs to be a team behind that helping to, format, distribute, and deliver across a multitude of channels. So it sounds like businesses need to have like kind of two things going there, which is the front running creator thinker and the power to distribute it.
Well, yeah, I mean, at HubSpot, we've always had a first principle of like, you don't make something unless you know how it's going to get distributed. I think too many teams make things and then try to figure out how to get it in the world. It's like, you need to make the thing with the mind of how it's going to get out in the world, right? And that's the nature of creating. But, you talked a little bit about that transformation and what people need to think about. Do either of you read Packy McCormick's newsletter? It's called Not Boring.
Not yet.
So Packy's a great writer. He's somebody I read every week, helps me get smarter. And the best thing I read this year is a few months ago, he wrote, or maybe even in the spring, gosh, the year's going fast. He wrote an article called Intelligence Superabundance. And what he argued, and what I agreed with in his argument, that anytime we've had a 10x 100x major innovation in human society that we thought was going to displace a lot of what happened in society, the kind of opposite happened, is that humans just consumed and wanted more and more, and the consumption met that new ability to do more. And I think that's where we're at with artificial intelligence, right? Like if you look at it, when we got intelligent agriculture technology and you needed less farmers, it didn't mean we made less food. We made more food. And it just meant that the careers of a lot of people evolved and changed to go do new and different things. The Industrial Revolution, like, it was awesome. And it was just a period of transition that came from this abundance of, in that case, automation. In our case now, an abundance of intelligence that's probably going to lead to massive consumption. I think more marketing consumption, more content consumption, more buyer-led evaluation. A buyer is going to want more and more control over their journey, especially in B2B, and companies are going to need to relinquish that control. And I think the companies who can do that and can use artificial intelligence to help that buyer self-serve in a kind of a real-time but on their own time experience are going to be the ones that win.
Yeah. So it might even further democratize the ability to gain the right attention, the relevant attention.
I believe it will.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of change in the last 15 years since you've been at HubSpot, even more probably accelerated change over the last 2-3 years, right?
Yeah. Change only happens faster, not slower, it turns out.
So what are some of the things at HubSpot that you've stopped doing in response to some of those big changes that you just spoke about?
Well, I think it's less about stop doing. Like, anytime you have a period of transformation, I think there's a process of, all right, what's possible, right? Like, understand what, so for artificial intelligence, it's like, oh, go read some API documentations, play with these models, understand, like, what are they good at now? What are they not good at now? Right? And where do we think they're going to go? Like, one of my core inclinations is Facebook released its Seamless LLM, which is a large language model where it can take in 100 different languages and output 36 different languages. So it's essentially kind of an interpretation and multi-language model versus like a multimodal model. But what's going to happen is that all businesses are going to be international by default. You're going to be able to operate in all these languages. And because of that, you're not going to be able to hire all these multilingual speakers. You're going to use automation through artificial intelligence and some real-time translation to serve an increasingly global audience. And I think that is incredibly exciting. Like, we are going to get much closer as a world, and globalization, I think, is going to accelerate because of that. And I think those are just one of the many things that, like, we're thinking about. It's like, oh, we serve companies all around the world. We're right now in 7 different languages. Oh, we might be able to be in 30 languages or 40 languages. And that's really exciting. And so in the early days, what we're doing is determining the use cases that we think are the best for where the technology is today. And I remember having a great discussion with the team who's running the AI work for us. And they're like, look, the thing you need to know is right now, artificial intelligence is great if it can be approximate. If you need something to be exact, you need data science, right? Like, if you need as close to an exact prediction as possible, you need hardcore data science. If there's a range of acceptable answers, you can use artificial intelligence. And I thought that was a great framework for what use cases may be valuable today versus what might be valuable down the road as these models get better.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, Phil, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just processing.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, same. Processing, AI, it goes hand in hand. So absolutely. I suppose on the flip side of that, and one thing that I was really interested to talk to you about on one of the Marketing Against the Grain episodes, I can't remember which one now, but the question I was going to ask is some of the core things that are working for HubSpot today. And one of the things I'm so interested in is the HubSpot blog, the HubSpot, content marketing engine that's been going for 15 years and still going and still going, despite people saying blogging is dead. Like, you need to, embrace the power of social more. Like, HubSpot's you're still blogging like there's no tomorrow, and it's obviously going well.
It's going very well. Yeah. Look, I think most teams out there, especially marketing teams, they don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they set what is accomplishable way too low. They're like, oh, well, we rank for these like 50 keywords. That's like all the keywords in our market and we're good. And it's like, no, that's not at all true. You're like, it's the whole George Bannister 4-minute mile problem, right? It's like nobody runs a 4-minute mile until somebody runs and then everybody runs it, right? So it's like, how unreasonable can you be in what you think is possible? So for us, look, text-based search, still going real well. Email marketing, still going real well. A lot of those things still going well, but there is some deterioration of those existing channels, right? And what we'll see is SMS, WhatsApp. Those are on the upswing. Those are going well. We're doing a lot in the platform there. Seeing huge success with YouTube. You know, could not invest more or go faster on YouTube as a platform. I believe that video is going to be kind of one of the last content mediums truly disrupted by AI in terms of search and everything else. And so diversifying into video is also harder. I promise, it's really hard. We've spent a bunch of time on it. And so there's also a higher barrier competitive moat there in getting that right and making that all work, you know? And so those are a few of the things that, and then we've seen huge success with AI chat, you know, basically integrating, you know, for us, we're using we chose to use the Open AI API, GPT-4 essentially with our product and customer data through HubSpot conversations. We're seeing massive improvement to the chat experience, better economics, lower cost, happier prospects, happier customers. So that's going really well.
Yeah, I think AI powered chat has the real potential to, you know, transform that area of marketing, which, you know, has had its challenges, you know, for a lot of businesses. And it's interesting to hear you say, you know, that businesses often aiming low at what's possible and what they can achieve, and they can think bigger. You know, and you're right. There is a misconception that in markets that are somewhat niche, there's a very small audience. There's a very small.
Well, it's also hard. It's also hard for when there's new stuff. Like I think the greatest story I ever heard around this was from the folks at Atlassian. If you remember, Atlassian had a product called HipChat. You guys remember HipChat?
Yeah.
HipChat was their enterprise internal chat product, and it was growing a couple 100% year over year. And they were like, "Oh man, this is going awesome." And then what happens? Slack comes on and completely toasts them because and they end up having to sell the HipChat business to Slack. Like that's how bad it is, right? And the reason was not because HipChat wasn't a good product, not because they weren't invested in it. They were invested in it as a business that could grow a couple 100% year over year when they were in a market that was growing thousands of percent year over year, right? They just undershot what they thought the opportunity was.
Right.
It wasn't that they didn't have smart people. It wasn't that they weren't doing really good things. They literally just undershot the market. And I think that is a lesson for all of us is I'd rather overestimate and come short than underestimate and like live up to that kind of low potential, you know?
That was an interesting time to be alive for sure. When
it was
Slack came on the scene. We were actually Stride users at the time. Atlassian went through a phase of Stride. Good product, but yeah, stuff got weird real quick there, and
it did.
Well, we don't use Stride anymore. So yeah, I mean, thinking big and aiming for what's possible, and also not, you know, like you say, I think there's a long tail left in the efficacy of some of the strategies that have been, you know, fundamental and foundational to HubSpot's growth, to our success, to lots of the companies we work with. So it's not all doom and gloom like right now, but there are shifts happening. There are changes that they will erode certain channels and strategies, but you just got to be forward thinking, adopting new stuff as you identify use cases and adding it. Right? It's not replace, it's add. Good stuff.
Yeah, I do think, you know, buyers are kind of moving slightly from search to social still.
Absolutely.
So do you have any kind of, you know, thoughts on the kind of social landscape right now, how that's changing, you know, what HubSpot are doing to kind of be successful there?
Yeah, the social landscape's wild, isn't it? Right now, it's like you have a company like X who's launching features that I think directly compete with LinkedIn. You see, I think the LinkedIn traction, I know we're live on LinkedIn right now. LinkedIn is doing great, right? They're crushing. The core LinkedIn engagement feed has never been better. The Sales Navigator product never been better. We just announced integration with HubSpot CRM and LinkedIn and all the Sales Navigator data. Like, that's going awesome. You have TikTok that is growing leaps and bounds and through the roof. You have YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. And I will tell you right now, the monetization of attention off YouTube videos is one of the most underappreciated aspects of marketing, especially in B2B. And so for us, we are trying to place our time and efforts heavily in social, but also where it makes the most sense. So for us, it's LinkedIn, that's X, that's YouTube, and that's short form video. And I say short form video because it's kind of inclusive of TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
Gotcha.
So are they the places where you kind of see the biggest opportunities for marketers going forwards, or is that elsewhere? Like, for the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see the biggest opportunity for?
I don't think we even know yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think to pretend we know would be very naive, because I believe that AI is going to disrupt how we use technology, how we search for information, how we act on information intelligence so much in the next 3 to 5 years that we will be in a new golden age of the internet, and we can't even see it right now. Is my honest belief.
Yeah, AI is just disrupting everything, right? And
no, so if you believe all of that, then you say, oh, what I need to do is I need to build a company and team culture of agility and change.
Yeah.
Right? Because, hey, we are going to be in this period of massive change. And if I'm an early adopter of that change, I get the benefits of being an early adopter, which are much higher engagement rates, much higher conversion rates, a lot more subscribers because there's less people competing for the attention on those platforms. All of those things are what's going to happen. Like, we're going to wake up in a few months, maybe 6, maybe 12. Some platform's going to just completely blow us all away. There's going to be another ChatGPT like moment, and we're going to be like, oh, how we just do this? Now it's just different.
Right.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
Me too. It's going to be fun.
Any day now. Yeah. I think the potential for ChatGPT and tools like it for individuals is astonishing. There's a team member at Blend who's relatively new to marketing, and I've seen them using ChatGPT to help them accelerate learning the more complicated side of marketing technology, HubSpot's intricacies, and communicate really effectively, really quickly. And I think as an individual productivity tool, it's taught me to code Swift in a matter of weeks. I think it's something I couldn't do at all before it came along. So, it's changing things on an individual level. It's changing how we discover content. It really, really is a rocket ship of opportunity for people and businesses that are open-minded about it.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So what we're saying basically is, if you're trying to plan, your marketing strategies for the next 5 to 10 years, the best strategy is to set yourself up to be agile, like to be flexible.
Yeah, you want to plan. Just don't be precious about it. Just know it's going to change.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think going back to that creative point, do something like this. Put yourself out there and be part of the conversation in your industry, so that you can get that valuable feedback, so that you can have that original thought, original thinker content that will cut through some noise. There's going to be some noise, right? There's going to be some saturation of lower, dare I say it, quality stuff coming out.
The thing I'd remind everyone of, Phil, is that what happens in a period of really brisk change for humans? Humans normally get scared. They're afraid of change, right? And in times of when we're afraid, what are we looking for? We're looking for somebody to lead us through that uncertainty and get us to some new certainty, so we can not be afraid anymore. And if you're a person, a brand, a marketer, that's the thing to remember, that everyone is going to look for leaders. And if I can be a leader and I can take that leadership position, I can build, I have essentially a generational opportunity to build brand equity, trust, authority, all of those things that we're looking for as companies every single day.
Yeah. I think I've heard it mentioned, and I recommend, like, pretty much every business should try to be the recognized authority, for something in their space. Because if you're not trying, then you're letting others steal a march with attention, with trust, with, you know, cutting through the noise that's there. So definitely think that, you know, being the voice that provides that direction through those times of scary change. It's something you've done twice now, B2B SEO and now AI, and probably a few more in between. So you've certainly got some experience doing that.
Yeah, your job is to learn the new stuff, figure it out, and then help other people figure it out too.
Yeah. You do an awful lot of that. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to thank you as well. Yeah, like the Marketing Against the Grain podcast, and like the amount of AI-based content and stuff and information you guys are putting out on AI is like really useful.
We spend a lot of our free time, and we don't have a lot of it, learning and experimenting and trying to get better at this coming wave of AI and technology, because I just think it is going to be critical to succeed in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's something, you know, most people can take away from this is like, you know, you guys don't have a lot of time to be doing stuff and stuff on the side.
That's what I always tell. I always tell people, like, I'm a fairly busy person, aren't we all? But it's like, pay attention to what people do. Where do people spend that remnant time? Because like, it's not what they say, it's what they do. And it's like, I spend all my time learning about AI and creating stuff on the internet. Because I think those are the two most important things. And I'm not telling you to do it. I'm doing it, and you can observe if over the next few years if I'm right or not, I guess.
Yeah, well, so far I think it has been. So
yeah, we're gonna keep it going.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Cool. Right. Well, let's wrap things up there. Again, thanks, Kipp. It's been an absolute blast. I do wish we could talk all day, and especially about AI. But really appreciate you coming on and sharing some useful and honest insights, I think, with the audience.
Awesome. As always, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for everybody who joined live and is listening after the fact. I'm all over the internet. Find me on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and talk to you all real soon.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Kipp.